Welcome. The conversation about values-based leadership has been around for a while. The problem is, the thinking is conceptual. Then we struggle to apply it to ourselves and to our businesses. The term values-based leadership evolved as a byproduct of what happened during the 1990s and the early 2000s, where we were plagued with massive unethical leadership failures. You remember those? This happened in both the private and the public sector. And it is still alive today, where the general public have very little faith in our institutions, from financial to political and business. I've had 4 clients who are major Australian brands say the same thing in the past 6 weeks. Our results are masking out the real issues sitting in the business, dreading the day when it all falls apart. If money is the main driving force in an organisation without the substance of who you are, what you stand for, and your purpose for existing, then you're building a house of cards. Today, let's spend time unpacking what it means to be a values-based leader. Mastering this will see you through the toughest of times, where your people will rally behind you. To begin, a values-based leader is not inside of some heroic person from the past or present, or a cartoon superhero. It's created inside of a grounded view of yourself, what's important to you, and the actions that you take. Recently, as I navigated a difficult situation in our business, I used our company value of trust with the distinction, permission to take bold action, and a personal value of clarity with a distinction it eliminates the noise as my support and guide. When I used these values, the straighter and clearer my conversations became. When you are using your values, they will drive your decision-making, which removes the unimportant and the unnecessary, allowing you to zero in on what will make the difference. That focus ensures that you as a leader do what's right. Whenever I lose sight of the company values, I feel like I'm wandering around in no man's land, and I'm no good to the business or our people. I'm sure many of you have had that as an experience, hey? When our personal and organisational values are alive and utilised, they give us the power to do what's right in the face of opposition. Today's webinar is all about giving you clarity and how values are a pathway to powerful leadership. For those of you who are new to our webinars, we will be sending you out to breakout rooms where you'll have a discussion on the question that we pose. Then we'll reconvene. If you have not yet introduced yourself, please do so with your name, company and location. Our first question for the day is this: how do you know something is of value to you? So our question, how do you know something's of value to you? Off you go, have a chat. Welcome back. So how did you go? Let's start with what is a value. Simply said, it's a set of principles or standards that you have which guide your behaviour. Your personal and business values gives you something to hang on to when everything else is going to pot. Now, Terry loves that I use that word, right? So we kept it in there. It determines and decides what's important. Remember I said it removes the unnecessary. Now you have a focal point. Your business values drive and guide your behaviour and that of the people that you work with. The values decide what is acceptable or unacceptable in this workplace, and it decides the actions that you will take when behaviours are not in line with those values. Remember me using trust when I was confronted? Let's look at some of the behaviours that support and don't support trust. This is what we created as a team. So, trust, permission to take bold action is our distinction. Some of the behaviours that support trust are the opportunity to create. Now that can sound a bit funny, but like if we trust and we can take bold action, then what could we create? Making hard calls, celebrating actions and not outcomes, acknowledging truth, like speaking up and saying what needs to be said, getting heard, being heard, permission to speak, willingness to take risks, and being responsible. So those are the behaviours that support our value of trust. What are the behaviours that don't support it? Some of them are not speaking up, like not saying what needs to be said. Getting comfortable, so don't get too comfortable around here. No commitment. Thinking small. Being risk averse and blaming anyone else. So that list is small at the moment, but we have lots more than that so that we can recognise when trust is present and alive and when it's not. And then you notice when it's being violated. This exercise allows you to notice that. Are your values being violated? When my values get violated, I get agitated, really agitated. And it takes me a few minutes to understand my reaction. Then I realise my values are being challenged, and invariably the request coming towards me is for me to compromise them. Have you ever had that experience? That is a no-go zone for me. Have you noticed businesses have their values on the walls? And people walk past them every day totally oblivious. They've become wallpaper. The only place values need to be held is in the hearts and minds of your people. If they're not, there is no alignment and therefore no connection. You need to throw them out and start again, ensuring you have real buy-in and don't put them back on the walls. If you do this well, now doing it well, you will not need any more than 3 values. People just can't remember them. Here at Integrity and Values, we used to have 5 values. And then I'd get stuck, and invariably 2 would fall off the radar. And I'd pick those up, and then 2 others would fall off. So we came up with, you need 3. It's about the number that we can remember. You will notice that each time I've mentioned a value, I've put a distinction on the word. So our next question for you is this. What is a distinction and why have one on the values? Go and have a conversation about that. Welcome back. How did you go? So what is this distinction and why have one? A distinction is what makes your relationship to your value unique. When you connect with that relationship, you are unwilling to be without it. You are drawing attention to the fact that you have a special meaning on this word in your organisation. If you don't have a distinction, it's just a word open to individual interpretation. Just watch the mess we create as leaders when we don't put a distinction on the word. I recall an experience where an executive was arguing with his team that everyone knew what truth was. They weren't stupid. Now, no one even suggested that they were. Anyway, that's what came out of his mouth. This hijacked the session for some time. We couldn't move on until they had their meaning for truth and how it would be upheld in their business. Not only does the distinction give you a point of difference, it also allows you to now use the value as an accountability tool inside the business. How does that work? We have a value of curiosity with a distinction honouring contribution. This is what happened between myself and Alison, who introduced herself this morning to you, one of our master facilitators. She gave me a huge wake-up call when I dismissed her as she was contributing to our whole marketing dilemma. I do remember this. She looked at me, pulled me up quick smart, and said this to me using our distinction. Hey, Jennifer, can you honour my contribution here? I'm grateful to her. She doesn't let me get away with anything. That's how powerful your value with a distinction can be. Another example is our value of trust, which I've mentioned before, permission to take bold action. We decided to do these webinars at the beginning of COVID. We'd never done anything like this before, and Jay just said to me, "We're just taking bold action. Off we go." And I went, okay, off we go. Let's just trust that we can do this. As leaders, having values creates a safe place for our people to challenge us and give us tools for accountability conversation. In your organisation, when someone does not uphold a value, it is an act of treason against the business. When you do not uphold your personal values, it is a treasonable act against yourself. This diminishes the belief that you have in yourself. When a leader doesn't live the values of the business, that is a treasonable act against the culture and the people. Treasonable acts happen constantly in businesses and go unchallenged. As a leader, make it safe for your people to challenge you. When you have a distinction on the word is now a tool and easier for everyone to use. I thought we'd share with you the rules for creating distinctions. Are you interested? So, here's number 1 rule. No more than 7 to 9 words. You want people to remember it. I was reviewing the values of a client recently, and literally there was a paragraph this long on what the value meant. Confusion reigned. No superlatives. What's that? That you're the preferred or the best or the employer of choice or you're better than anyone else? You're in trouble then. If you're the preferred supplier, what happens when you don't get the gig? You're no longer preferred. Or what does that mean? What happens when someone says, I know someone who's better than you at this? Using superlatives sets you up for failure and disappointment. Number 3, the whole executive buys in. There is complete agreement. No close enough is good enough. When we do this exercise as executives, teams choose their values and then create their distinctions, if there's any compromise, it will come back to bite you. I've heard words like, I didn't agree anyway, months after the event. Stay in the conversation until you have resolution. Compromise is not an option. Rule number 4, you can't use the same word to describe itself. As an example, let's say you have commitment as a value and you create the distinction, we are committed to excellence every day. What's that supposed to mean now? There's no clarity here. Given the rule, you cannot use a word to describe itself. Your distinction would say something like this instead. Commitment. Excellence is our practice every day. So you notice there was excellence every day. Now use that. Let me give you some further examples created by our clients. These are these are people with the same value with a different and unique distinction. Maybe this will give you a few ideas. A personal value, let's start there. I have a personal value of freedom. My distinction, the gift of responsibility. One of our clients, Meek, has a personal value of freedom, and his distinction is putting the ball in my court. I love that one. Passion, DEM fire, enthusiasm for the journey. Different to altitude hotels, where whatever the challenge, we enjoy our work. Is this starting to make sense? Fun, adventure operations, where play is the everyday. We were working with them the other day and they said, oh, that's not alive. And where is it in the business? What is play every day? And they're working on it. They're looking at it, going, what the heck is that? Noppin', you make it what it is. That's fun for them. You make it. How about integrity? It's a favourite as a value. AH Beard, commitment in action is their distinction on integrity. And BBG, what we say is what we do. Can you see that once you give it a distinction, it changes everything? In summing up, a value without a distinction loses its gravitas in the business. It's not easy to come up with agreement on the business values and the distinctions. You can get support on the process. The executive is responsible for doing the hard work in creating the values and the accompanying decisions. Oh, sorry, I'm going to repeat myself. The executive is responsible for doing the hard work in creating the values and accompanying distinctions. You can't outsource this to a PR company or the marketing department. Your values drive the vision, so make sure you're clear about it. This leads us nicely into our next question. What does the values-based leader require to lead? So off you go and talk about what are the attributes of a values-based leader. Thank you. Welcome back. Remember we started with there is a widespread lack of confidence in leadership. Values-based leadership is not the cure for everything that is not working. It is a great place to start. What I know is strong leaders keep things simple and they have a lot of common sense. In 2011, Janssen Kramer distinguished the 4 principles of values-based leadership. And I really like them. They make a lot of sense. The first one, self-reflection, is the hallmark of a strong leader. One of the activities we give our leaders that work with us is to send their coach a personal self-reflection at the end of each week. What we notice is this: those leaders who take this seriously grow as they keep looking at themselves and the impact that they have. What they are looking for is, what are my values and where have I failed them this week? Am I on purpose? And what do I stand for? We measure self-awareness in the integrity and values profile. When we reflect and put things into perspective, we change our behaviours. And we don't use time as the excuse for not going and doing that reflection. Here's a small exercise for you. Ask yourself this question. How often am I surprised in a month or a week? You know, you're surprised, like, really? That's what's happening? If you're surprised more than twice a month by someone in your organisation, by their actions or by their behaviours, it means you don't reflect enough. And the result of that is you're caught off guard. So how many times have you been caught off guard? Heck, how come I didn't know that? When you could have preempted the hiccup, and in some cases, a disaster. So how many of you have had disasters that when you really looked at it, you knew that if you'd been thinking about this and reflecting on what was happening and all the little steps that led up to it, it was always going to go that way. No self-reflection, you don't see that. The values-based leader is balanced. This is not work-life balance. This is simply life balance. If you say something is important to you and you spend no time on it, you are out of balance. Imagine you're an alien, okay? So we've all got aliens here now. Looking down on yourself. Reflect on where you spend your time. What would the alien say about you? I thought I'd tell you this one funny story. We have a client who drives in excess of 150,000 kilometres around Sydney every year. And when Alison asked him, well, do you like driving? No, I hate it. He's a senior executive in a business. He's driving from one location to the next. And she said to him, have you ever heard of a telephone? Now, what does it say about him? And as one other person said, what is he avoiding? That he spends all his time on the road doing something he says he doesn't like doing, driving. What would the aliens say about that? This is a big topic and we don't have enough time here to spend on it. What does it look like when we are balanced? Here's some homework for you. Go and be an alien looking at your life. Where do you spend your time and how aligned are your actions with your personal and business values? Plus, the values-based leader is interested in what other people think. They use what they hear to support them to make right calls. This is not lip service. This is truly unpacking what they said. The value-based leader is open-minded and you get other people's opinions for a balanced understanding in your decision-making. So go be an alien right now, looking at your life. The next one, true self-confidence. This means that the leader accepts themselves the way they are. You know your strengths and you know your weaknesses and strive for continuous improvement. This means you don't need to know everything. I love these words that often come out of leaders' mouth. I know. And our response to that is, if you knew, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The true self-confidence means that you're actually okay with not knowing. We've got some weird stuff happening in organisations right now. We don't have weaknesses anymore. Oh no, we have developmental needs. Really? No, you're just not good at that. And that's okay if it's not a requirement of your role. If it is a requirement of your role, we're going to have a whole nother conversation. The values-based leader acknowledges his weaknesses and surrounds himself with strong people who counteract that gap. That's smart. There are things that happen inside of integrity and values that I'm just not good at. And if I took over, it would take 10 times longer to get the job done. Admitting you don't know everything gives the people around you the opportunity to step in and step up. That that invitation grows you and it grows them. Next, genuine humility. When you don't get where you came from and what it took for you to be where you are now, you lack the capacity to keep growing and learning, and you stymie the people around you. The values-based leader keeps life in perspective. They know it's all about the team. For me, humility means to be coachable and teachable. People can contribute to you. We know that if people cannot contribute to a leader, then they're hiding. As we climb the ladder of success, people will often acknowledge you and tell you how great you are. Remember, genuine humility constantly reminds us that we stand on the shoulders of giants. We stand on the shoulders of our teams. They are the ones that hold us up and lift you up when times get tough. So the equation goes a little bit like this. If you don't self-reflect, you can't understand what's out of balance. And you don't get true self-confidence because you can't see it, and you're hiding behind that you know everything, pretending that that's not what you're doing. You lose genuine humility and you stop growing. The values-based leader is constantly walking through this process, using their personal and business values to navigate growing themselves and growing their people. Here's a small exercise for you. Rate yourself on how well you do these 4 attributes, from poor to okay to great. Be ruthlessly honest with yourself. To be a values-based leader, we look first to ourselves, no matter how painful. And let me tell you, it's often painful. We have an exercise in the business where, for our clients, we give them awareness interviews. They tell us it's one of the most exciting conversations they ever have about themselves with their people. And often their people say, "Can we do this too?" If we can take on the feedback that our people give us, we get genuine humility. Wow, that's how they see it? How do we create enough safety for them to be able to tell us the truth? We bring love, compassion, and rigorous adherence to your values because they will save you every single day. They will give you the place to go when things are not working. Look first to yourself and ask yourself this question. What is the missing value that would make all the difference if I brought it to this conversation? I believe that if people lived inside of their personal and business values and vision, then life gets easier. I know it does for me. When I'm reminded of that, what are we about here? It makes life so much easier. Why? Because people would have no tolerance for something that doesn't grow who they are and who their team is. In conclusion, being a values-based leader is a journey, not a destination. As participants walk into our Leadership in Action program, on the very first day, the flip chart reads, "Welcome to the journey of a lifetime." There are hundreds of flip charts on the wall as we finish their time with them. That one in particular resonates as our leaders reflect on the journey we took them through, and we went with them together. At Integrity and Values, our vision is to empower leaders to build responsible teams that produce extraordinary results. Our invitation: be the leader that is the steward of your values and the champion of your vision. This won't be easy. It's just worth it. Thank you for being here this morning. I'll hand you back to Alison.